I don't know. That seemed like it was kind of broken up there. I don't know about the rest of you, but the internet, welcome to 2021. The internet works sometimes. It looks like one of my guests is completely black here. Stuart Culver. Anyways, welcome to today's show sponsored by WebInsights. Check out webinsights.com to identify your website visitors. Who wouldn't want to do that, honestly? But today, we come on here every month or so. We've done a couple of interesting discussions now on ABM and other topics, account-based marketing. Today, we want to talk about how do you set up your sales team for success? Because at the end of the day, if we don't make any money in our business, you know what we call it? It's a hobby, right? If I don't make any money, it's a hobby. I go to the gym, don't make any money. Nobody buys my workouts because I wouldn't buy them either. All right, so today we want to talk about how to set up sales teams. So let's talk with today's experts and find out who they are, and we'll go from there. We got a wide range of panelists today, all the way from the West Coast of the United States. I'm in the Central Time Zone, all the way to Europe. So what a challenge, right, for all of us to find a good time. Let's get started here with, we'll go somewhat west to east, I guess. Lenny, welcome to the show. Tell us about who you are, what you do.
Hi, good morning. My name is Lenny. I work for Protege, which is a digital marketing company focused in the loyalty space. I'm the Vice President of Revenue and Sales and Business Development, lead up a team of salespeople specifically on our performance marketing division, one of our 4 divisions.
Awesome. Welcome to today's show. Stuart, let's go with you next.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon from our side here. I'm Stuart Calver. I'm the Global Sales Director at a company called Webio. We're a website personalization software, and I head up the sales division where we're predominantly focused on selling our SaaS solution into businesses across the UK and the US predominantly.
Well, awesome. Thanks for joining us. I think Webio came up on a previous episode that we did. Somebody mentioned it, I think it was a few months ago. So awesome to have you on today. Tom James, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Christoph, and good to see everyone sort of virtually. I'm Tom James, the CEO of WebInsights. I am responsible for the sales team as part of my role, and also run and built several sort of sales teams over the last 15 years or so.
Last 15 years, awesome. That's some experience right there. And finally, joining us from Germany, Marlene von Roth.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marlene von Roth. I work for a multinational software company called SUSE, which focuses on open source Linux software. And I'm the sales director EMEA, focusing on the cloud region. My team is heading up managed service providers all over EMEA. I've been in sales for over 20 years and really happy to be here.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us. And I'm always jealous when anybody I talk to is in Germany. I grew up in Germany, and right now travel is such a mess. So I'm sitting in this chair 16 hours a day. I don't know. I don't keep track anymore. So let's talk about sales teams. Sales teams, of course, I don't know. I'm not a sales guy. I wouldn't want to be one, even though sometimes I close deals here and there. But aside the obvious, no money is coming in. I mean, that's what I would answer, but you guys are the experts. What are some of the common barriers that sales teams face? I mean, where do we even start to identify those? Well, Stuart, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's the classic challenge I think that everyone faces is always about getting enough leads through, or enough of the right quality lead, I think will be, more specifically in most cases. But for me, some of the challenges are, particularly in the world as it is today, is more around probably 3 key areas for me, which is about juggling different responsibilities, depending on how your sales teams are structured. You've got people having to balance that kind of pipeline creation, prospecting element of it, through to pipeline management and closing the deals, and sort of where to focus the time and how to manage all those responsibilities is a challenge I've seen across multiple sales teams. I think balancing personalization with volume is a challenge that I see a lot of people facing now, and a barrier to sort of sales, in the fact that there's so much noise digitally now, especially with what's happened over across the last year and stuff. And the way to get cut through is personalization. It's about sort of standing out from the crowd, but you can also take that too far and never hit enough volume to get the actual results you need. So that's a challenge that I see. And then the other barrier I see to sales is people taking a sort of a generic approach to leads. So kind of viewing every lead as if it should be the same, and therefore they're either good, bad, or indifferent. And recognizing that leads are at different stages when they come across to you is important to make sure you deal with them in the right way. So they're probably some of the barriers that I see people are dealing with today in terms of driving forward sales.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Stuart on a lot of those things. I think that a lot as sales leaders and as sales teams, we talk a lot about leads. Personally, I don't like that one because that's basically the excuse that all salespeople have to not do sales. And the reality is there's more leads in the world than you could imagine. I mean, even this call, you pulled together people from 3 different continents and across, a bunch of different time zones. And if you can make that happen, then, you can tap, especially in the digital age. I mean, Stuart probably has his clients all over the world. I definitely do. And there's more leads than you can imagine. So I don't think that that's an issue. I think it becomes really an attitude issue of how much do I, as an individual salesperson, want to work to go get those leads? How much do I want to rely on others to get those leads to me, whether it's the marketing team or the sales development resource team, or just sheer luck of, being in sales and hoping that things come my way. So that's my personal pet peeve is the attitude. And I think that that seems to be a strong barrier to success and to sales. But also I think that the personalization, in a sense that not necessarily the way you attack the lead has to be personalized, but more, which you do, but more so the ever-changing style of the sale, which is, people are busy, people don't have a lot of time, people are not interested in sitting on Zoom for too long or whatever it is. So being able to really get in there, understand the customer's needs, identify the solutions that you can help them with, deliver that in a positive and efficient fashion, that seems to be quite a bit of a barrier for many salespeople, in my humble opinion.
I totally agree on the mindset, what Lenny was saying. And I think in terms of the leads, I think it has really changed, whereas it used to be kind of calling up leads, but the buyer journey has really changed. So when you get a lead in, most of the buyers have already done all of their research. So it's really about understanding, if you have a lead, if you're lucky enough, understanding what is the buyer after, understanding your proposition on how you can help the buyer. And I think it's an excuse saying I don't have any leads, I have bad leads. I think salespeople should be owning their role as if it's their own business. They should be proactive. There's things you can do if you don't have any leads. Maybe host a webinar or maybe post some content. Reach out to your network on LinkedIn, do some targeting campaigns with marketing. I think sales is just so much more than leads, and just sitting there and saying, hey, I don't get any leads is just no excuse. I think you just have to be creative and, have to kind of change your mindset and just do what works in your market and for your product.
Yeah, and I think the thing I would say around all of that, completely agree with that first and foremost. But the element about salespeople complaining about leads or not having enough leads and so on is, I suppose my sort of input on that would be you've probably got the wrong people in the first place. And I think that's actually a huge barrier right now for sales teams, sales leaders, organizations is actually attracting the right talent in the first place. It's very, very competitive out there. Lenny touched on it, how, we're across different continents today. We're seeing recruitment now cross continents and, people in the UK can go and get jobs in the US and so on and do that remotely. So actually, I think one of the biggest challenges for any sales team right now is getting the talent through the door in the first place. retaining it, developing it, and so on, because you can have fantastic marketing teams providing leads, all the personalization in the world. You can have super sales operations people doing great things with data and systems, but if you've got the wrong people in the team to begin with, then I think that's a huge barrier in itself.
Yeah, I think that's all of those things are valid, and the thing that I would say, just Tom, is that it's hard to find new talent. I think that a lot of the barriers that sales leaders find are actually with veteran talent, which get complacent and satisfied with their sort of status quo, and they don't have that same passion and hunger as they used to. So when things go south, it becomes a complaining game. And what it's really then turns into like, look, the product, you're a great salesperson. If I gave you a lead, I know you can close it. But what about going out there and getting your own leads as you did when you were young, as you did when you were starting out? If you would shift your attitude back to that, like, I have to go get that every day. Many times you can turn, a veteran sales guy who used to be a top performer back into one if you can get his attitude set straight.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's it. It's about how do they make the most of the downtime? Because, don't know about everybody else on the call, but I've certainly done lots of traveling, put in lots of miles over the years doing sales myself. And a lot of that has disappeared over the last 18 months. And I think the best sales teams and the best salespeople that I've seen have actually reinvested that saved time. They're not traveling around the country or the state to sit 10, 15, 20 meetings a month. So they've taken that time and they've reinvested that in themselves, in development and so on. So to your point, Lenny, absolutely. The people I think who are now sort of leading the race are the people that have adapted. The older, perhaps people who used to sell it in a certain way, in an older style, have adapted as well. And they sort of reinvested that downtime. But I think that in itself is a barrier again, is productivity in the current market. How do we actually get salespeople to reuse their time and reinvest it in themselves to sort of overcome a lot of the challenges that they're facing now?
I love the way, Tom, you were saying about how the people adapted. I think that's really important. If you're someone who goes like, oh, but we've always done it this way. I heard a lot about kind of like, oh, I'm not able to meet my customers face to face. I think it's all this, how do you adapt with the change? How do you go with the change? Are you sitting back, or are you changing the way how you're approaching your customers? Are you being creative? I mean, a webinar is a great thing, but maybe we come to the time where people have seen too many webinars, do something different. I've had someone reaching out to me and reaching out over and over again. And in the end, they said, hey, click on this link and you get a book about our product, It's something different. And I had a book 2 weeks later. I think it's just doing something different, personalize it and stand it out and just adapt and, change the way you're doing things. I think if you keep knocking at the same door and doing the same thing and it doesn't work, you just have to kind of be smart enough and creative to change whatever you're doing if it's not working.
If I am going to steal that one, if you keep knocking at the same door and nobody answers, why is it going to change? Fantastic. You know what I really love about this discussion? You guys are all talking about attitude. But one thing I want to make clear, I'm older and I like to think I have a good attitude about most everything until somebody's a jerk. So I don't know if it's age, and I know that's not what we were saying, but I definitely see that a lot too. It's like, oh, this is how I've done it for 30 years. Who are you to tell me to do it differently? Who are you to tell me to use Salesforce? Oh my God, I've had those discussions before with salespeople. Didn't want to use Salesforce because when they started, there wasn't Salesforce, right? It's like unheard of today almost to not use some kind of system like that. You guys mentioned the quality, the number of leads too. I mean, if I have 5,000 crappy leads, I'm not going to close a sale, right? So, I mean, what's the importance of the number?
Yeah, it's not about the numbers. For me, it's about really kind of like, say, treating those leads in the way that they should be treated, in terms of, there's the old adage that anyone's a lead and all that sort of stuff. And there's definitely no shortage of leads out there. It's just that they're at different stages of their journey. So, for me, with like my team, there was that sort of historic situation where, as I say, they had one closed-in view of what a lead was, and for them it was the ideal lead. It was that someone who was kind of in the market, wanting to buy, and in that kind of real discovery phase, ready to kind of find a solution. And then, therefore, if you have that kind of really singular view on what a lead is, it can only be classified against that. So it can either fit that and be good, or it doesn't fit that and it's bad. And I think that then creates the wrong habits off the back of that. So what I always sort of say to my guys is we try and look at scenarios of leads. So there are leads that are people that are, uneducated on your product or your offering, and not necessarily your product, but as in what it does and how that helps market. And so they need educating. And there's people that come to the table that, leads we get from our marketing team where they're a great business and a great fit for our solution, but it's the wrong person. But that's a scenario. It's a scenario where you've got a good opportunity with the wrong person. So how are you going to deal with that? Well, we're going to have to, we know we've got a good opportunity here, but we know the next process is, what is our strategy for getting to the right people? And then you get those leads that come across the table, and they're fewer and further between, where it is someone who's genuinely in the market right now looking at a solution, and they might be talking to competition, and therefore it's a different scenario. So we know in this scenario, we haven't got to find different people. We haven't necessarily got to try and educate them about our market, but we know we need to make sure they know why our solution is the better solution in the market compared to the others out there. And I think when you start to create lead scenarios, you recognize, okay, rather than just saying, is this good or bad, you start to get into the situation of, well, what pot does this lead sit within, and how do I best deal with it based on that pot, rather than just the case of every lead is the same idea, and therefore it either ticks the boxes or it doesn't, and I'm going to either work hard on it or kind of throw it away. And for me, that's an important factor in making sure we make the most out of the opportunities that we do have.
I love what you're saying, Stuart, and I'm not the interviewer here, but I'm gonna pose a question to everyone, because I think better get to the definition of this before we continue down this path. And everything you're saying is right, but the real question is, what is a lead? We talk about leads, good leads, bad leads, qualified, not qualified, what stage they're in, but what is considered a lead? And I guess I'll give a little bit of an answer. But I think that there's no such thing as a good lead and a bad lead. There's interest or non-interest, and I know about, to Stuart's point, I know about your product, I don't know about your product. I know about your product and I don't want it. I don't know about your product, and maybe I should know about it and I should want it. My philosophy has always been, you don't have bad leads. You have leads that may not be the right target, which means they're not really a lead. They're just, someone thought that they may be interested, or they may have a need for what you need, but they were never a lead to begin with. And so even addressing those leads are not a great way of getting things done. Rather, identify that these are inaccurate targets and go find accurate targets. And is a lead meaning, like, are you waiting? If a salesperson is waiting for a lead to come to him from a marketing team or from a convention or whatnot, they're most likely not going to be all that successful. So it's more about targeting a company which you believe needs your service and product, and then latching onto that with all the sales technique that you have to at least get a call going to see if they truly are a target. And that at that point, once you've qualified that they are a target as an individual sales rep, you can quantify them as a lead. Before that, it's nothing.
Yeah, funny enough, actually, we used to. So my previous company, we were a sort of an outbound marketing company, and the teams that we had working there, and often when we talk to clients, they'd be like, "Well, we've got this list of leads," and we were like, "That's just data. That's not a lead." And so it's really interesting when you talk about that classification of leads, because it is a term that gets used so broadly. And we literally had people telling us that we've got this list of leads. We're like, okay, well, where did it come from? How did they show their interest? I don't know. We just know that they meet our profile. It's like, okay, so we would class that as data. And that's data of companies that could become a lead, but they're not a lead yet. So it definitely is a term that gets very thrown about loosely and means different things to different people. And I think getting that understanding right in your business is critical to having an effective sales process.
I think it's about creating opportunity.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't
It's
like
about
the
creating
name.
opportunities.
Yeah, creating opportunities. It's not, it used to be budget, timeline. I don't think they need to have a budget or a timeline. It's about you have something and they don't know yet that they need it, and it's gonna help them and support their journey and give a solution about a pain they have, and they might not even know about that pain. So I think that's why, why we need salespeople, not just someone who bangs the phone and, oh yeah, are you interested? No, that's a bad lead. Let's go to the next one. It's really about creating opportunities, finding the solutions.
Marlon, it's so true what you're saying. Years ago, and I'll never forget this one incident I had with a sales rep. I had this one sales rep who consistently would come to me and they'd be like, check it out. This company just raised $100 million. And it always irked me because I said to him, what does that help you? He's like, well, they have money to spend now. I said, okay, but do they have a need for our product? And he went flat. And he was like, but they have money, so we for sure could get some. I'm like, rather than spending your time on finding which companies are raising money, spend your time on finding companies that truly need our product, that you can walk in their door and wholeheartedly, with passion, sell them our product. If they have a need for our product in any way, shape, or form, and you can convey that and you can find where it fits in, they'll spend money with you regardless of if they have raised 100 million or not. Needless to say, he's not a sales rep anymore.
I love that. Yeah, and that's so true. Very true. That's great.
So, so we of course uncovered a few barriers here, and I do appreciate you guys just talking amongst each other. That makes the discussion so much more lively than me kind of prodding everybody. So really, we heard attitude, types of leads, the right talent. We didn't really talk about product fit, but that's important too, right? I mean, if you have a product, none of you guys have that, I'm sure, but that's, nobody wants it. It's a horrible product. It doesn't make any difference how good the salesperson is, right? I mean, so we have to think about that too. And then the other thing is, how about communication? I'll give you an example. I'll talk to anybody, as you may have guessed already, right? I'll talk to anybody, but you know what emails I don't read that start like this? Hello, Christoph, comma, I hope you're doing well. You know who sends me emails like that? Only salespeople. I don't know about Europe, but in the US, nobody other than salespeople sends me an email that says, hope you're doing well. Not my wife, she doesn't do that. Nobody else. Not my boss, nobody. So how important is communication and figuring out what language actually triggers somebody to talk to you or to keep going? I mean, does that just fit into having the right attitude, or how do you guys feel about that?
Oof, this is the big one. I'm gonna take a stab at this, but the first thing you said, product fit, I want to address that first. I don't know if there's such a thing. I think there's just bad salespeople. If it's a bad product fit, then you shouldn't be taking the job as a sales director or salesperson at that company, because you clearly didn't do your research on that product to begin with, and you don't understand what you're getting yourself into. So you're probably not a great sales rep or sales leader. Otherwise, you would have avoided it, with a 10-foot pole. But if you took on the challenge of selling a product or leading a team to sell a product, you best be sure that product is sellable and something that's needed in the marketplace before you get in there. So anyone who says the product is not a good fit is lazy. I'll make that statement. But I think with communication, what I've found is that it's difficult for every sales rep to adapt to every prospect. And I think that's something that sales leaders sometimes make mistakes by giving territories or accounts to sales reps. These are yours, go hunt them. I have a philosophy that, some people just jive better with other people. Some people write in a style that other people like, some people don't. And it doesn't really matter how good you are at catering. It might just not be a good fit personality wise. And so it's about trying, different prospects with different people. If you're not seeing the right success with a specific individual salesperson, you can't really force the guy to change his style or the girl to change his style, but you can tell them, look, you might be better with this type of lead, so I'm going to do some horse trading here and give you over one that this other guy was working in place, give the other guy that one. And I've seen that work many times. To highlight that, I recently hired an international sales rep in Israel, and this guy has a very different style than anyone that I've ever worked with. I have a subject line that says, company name dash protege rocking it. And the email works, right? The deal is closed. The guy is making it happen. And, you know, when I show that to the American sales reps, it's just appalled. It's like, I would never write that in the subject line of an email. So it could just be style and making sure that you're getting the right people to work on the right accounts and the right territories and the right geographics. And, you know, I hope you're doing well might work well, you know, for someone in Australia or someone in China, whereas in the US, you know, people in Iowa clearly don't like that, right? Or rocking it in an email address might turn someone off in the US, being like, what do you mean rocking it? I don't even know who you are. But, you know, in Israel or in Europe, that might be very exciting. Oh my God, here's someone a breath of fresh air. I want to rock it. What are you doing to rock it? So I think that's a lot of what it takes to communicate properly with your reps, with your prospects.
Yeah, and I'd echo actually that quite a bit in terms of, I think the problem you've got, this has been an age-old thing of trying to find out how you should write an email and stuff, and what should be the opening. And I think if you're in a marketing team and you're sending a mass broadcast, it's really important you do find what works best, and it's never going to appeal to everyone. You know, there's no getting away from, you know, you're targeting thousands of people probably in most cases, and they're going to be different personalities and they'll respond in different ways. You know, I've been sort of, I guess, in my time here, we've taken Webio into the US, and I've very much seen a difference in style between the UK and the US. So in the UK, we probably have this quite polite style on our emails, and you do get a lot of, you know, hi Stuart, how you doing, and or kind of that kind of opening. And there's also the emails finished with like best regards Stuart, and it's all very formal and polite. But I've, you know, seen very clearly that in the US it's a lot more to the point, and often the email is just they write the sentence that they want to talk about, and that's it. There's no sign off, there's no introduction. And so I have seen generalization where there's those different approaches in different markets, and it's important to try and spot those nuances. But I would still say there's still US prospects that we have that more formal approach with, and they respond that way. And there's also UK prospects that just write one-liners to us. So there is no one size fits all, and that makes it very difficult, to his point about when you're outreaching for the first time or someone you haven't got a relationship with, you're never going to get it spot on. I think what you therefore need to do is you just need to be authentic. You know, it needs to be like about how you would do it, because I think that's when people come across in the wrong way, is when they try and, like you say, be someone else. At his point, you just can't suddenly make someone change. So, you know, it's about being authentic. It's about making sure the content of your message has some value to that prospect and is personalized in terms of its relevant, I guess, to a point there. And how you dress it up around that relevancy. Sometimes you're going to hit the mark and sometimes you're not going to hit the mark. And if you try and you just do hit a brick wall, then exactly to Lenny's point, switch it up, because most sales teams will have different personality profiles, different approaches, and sometimes you just need to try a different tact on it. But yeah, I just think you can spend a long time trying to get the perfect approach, and it works with one person. And that's what normally happens. It works with one or two, and we go, this is the way forward. And then you realize that actually the next 10 people you hit are nothing like that, and it doesn't work at all. So, you know, I've never found the perfect approach yet. I think it's about persistence, it's about creativity, it's about, and also just being authentic to yourself.
But
I think it's, sorry.
Oh, no, please.
I think it's really important to personalize it. Do your research as well. I remember someone from LinkedIn trying to sell me LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and she would always check out what I've been up to, you know, recently, and would always mention something. So I kind of know she's interested in me as a person, in what I do. She understands what's going on. So that's really important. But also what we haven't touched yet is how many touches. You know, how many emails do you have to send? I think research shows you have to send up to 10, 15 follow-up emails, you know, in order to get a response. I don't mean that you constantly, every week you send another email, but there is a certain number of touches, you know, someone needs to respond as well. So I think one email won't do the trick, or, you know, try to call, or, yeah, but it's not that one email. If they don't reply, you know, don't give up. Maybe send another email, check out what that company's been up to, what's going on in their lives at the moment. Touch on those kind of points.
Yeah, and I think that, all great points, and it comes back to sort of what we touched on at the start around the personalization element there. So I suppose it's harder when you are doing the sort of larger broadcasts, email campaigns that Stuart and touched on. But, I think, again, it's about how salespeople can adapt now. If they are doing smaller prospecting, if SDRs or even social prospecting teams are working, there's some great technology out there now that people can embrace. You can get plugins to LinkedIn that will scan people's profile and give you some tips on maybe how to approach them. So again, I think it's just about being smarter, investing more time. You've got to work harder ultimately. We've seen that, but I'm sure salespeople who were selling 5-10 years ago would say that it always gets tougher. The game always gets harder. So you've got to keep working smart. But the other thing, just to touch on, I suppose, is which is sort of on the personalization piece, but it's all about referenceability, and how you set up your prospecting. So, one of the things that certainly we've seen work very well for us and over the years is all around the vertical focus, which I'm sure many people do as well. But actually, you don't need the fancy subject lines or the hi, how are you, and all of this sort of stuff. Actually, if you've got something really strong to talk to customers about, if you're dealing with, perhaps a small target audience of 100 companies, maybe 1,000 companies, and you've got fantastic referenceability within that, maybe you work with 5%, 10%, whatever that might be, then that's actually what people want to hear. Buyers want to know that if their competition are using a particular service or product, then it's almost that sort of fear of loss, really. They really want to understand, well, what are my competition doing? So I think having a tighter sort of focus around, your ideal customer profile or a specific vertical, getting SDRs, getting salespeople, getting people aligned perhaps to that one vertical and really becoming an expert within that, getting the referenceability and giving buyers a reason to actually want to talk to you because you've got something really, really strong that you could educate them on based on your experience. I think, for us, that's something we've seen work very, very well.
Everyone here has a lot of very valid points, but I would love to pick apart a lot of the points that were spoken. I think that Stuart said something that's very important. There's no one size fits all, and I would be very disappointed if anyone left this webinar with the feeling that, oh, I need to send 15 emails. Oh, I need to personalize the email. Oh, I need to put my competitors in every single email. None of these are hard and fast rules, and none of them work 100% of the time. I can tell you that when it comes to sending your competitors are doing X, Y, and Z, we've seen a lot of success with a lot of those emails, and we've also seen a lot of failure because some people don't want to know. Some people are looking at it being like, okay, great, Pepsi does that, but I don't have Pepsi's budget, so I'm not even going to answer. So you can turn a client off as easily as you could turn them on. Just a funny point also, Christoph said that he doesn't like emails that people write, hi, how are you today? Or I hope you're well. And Marlon said that, she likes the emails where people about what they notice in her LinkedIn profile. I personally like when someone says, hope you're doing well, because that means that they're not just here to care about themselves and they've given an iota of a second to write something that's not about themselves. Whereas I don't like when people are writing about my accomplishments or how good my LinkedIn profile is or how they noticed X, Y, and Z, because that to me is an indication that they're trying to butter me up to go for a sale. And so I automatically shut off. But in this small group, it just highlights how the preferences are so varying and different that it's really about trying different things and back to basics of just working hard, as Tom says, and attitude. When a salesperson complains that there's no leads or a salesperson complains that no one's getting back to them, you're just not coming to work with the right attitude and working hard enough. I don't think anyone here on the phone will tell you you've met a salesperson who has worked the 10 hours a day, has taken advantage of every tool in their arsenal, has been persistent time and again, has tried different tactics, has gone after different industries, has come in with a positive attitude and has failed. That is non-existent. And any other version of that, yes, very likely they have failed because either they were waiting on the leads or they gave up on the follow-ups or going after, tomorrow in sport, it's not necessarily 15 email follow-ups to the same person. It's maybe 15 touch points to get a company to work with you. So that could be an introduction at a convention, a follow-up with that person, realizing that person's not getting back to you, circling back and going to an agency, coming back to the company, and using all of these tools to, personalization in your arsenal to get somewhere is really the key. But it boils down to hard work and art and creativity.
What I love about that statement about no excuses. And, when Seth Godin was on the show, that's what he said, basically. Stop the excuses why you can't ship something. Just get it done and ship it. I mean, it's like, I don't know, for me, the opening was breaking up. Did we give up on the day? Oh my goodness, we can't do a webinar because one thing didn't work. It is interesting how you don't know, you don't know who reacts to what. Now, the one thing, I think, Tom, I think it was you, right? There are tools out there now on LinkedIn, and I think they're actually, they're pretty accurate. I mean, they peg me pretty accurately. They say, if you're going to talk to this guy, you just got to get to the point, and like whatever, right? And it's pretty accurate. So I don't know why people don't use them, quite frankly. Well, lots of things we've already uncovered. Let's talk about, I'm more on the marketing side. And there is value in people who are not ready to buy. I know this is the funnel right here. This is my graphic design skills, my hands. They're interested in your product, but maybe not today, right? So how do we get marketing and sales to work together, and not in the unhealthy way, but how do they work together and really, push people down the funnel, so to speak?
For me, a lot of that's about taking it a step back a little bit in the first place, about that alignment between sales and marketing, forgetting about the prospect journey, but just sales and the marketing alignment's really critical in the first place because of everything we've said today about the fact that people are at different stages, they need different approaches. And I think what I've seen in organizations, I've seen both sales and marketing functions that are fighting against each other with just their own short-term end goal. And I've seen those working well together. And I think for me, you've got to get your sales and marketing departments aligned, I'm not talking about the work they're doing, I'm talking about mentally aligned. And if you get that right, then you can then start to build those right journeys and work out how you take a prospect forward. So, for me, that starts with making sure that your sales and marketing leaders are aligned and they understand what business success looks like. So not what marketing success, not what sales success looks like, but what business success looks like. Once you've got that alignment, it's about making sure the teams are aligned. So it's really important that for me that you humanize that relationship. I've seen sales guys come off calls and keyboard warrior send a message back to marketing about how bad the lead was, and I've seen marketing people keyboard warrior about how bad a salesperson was and they didn't make the most of an opportunity. And it's that we've obviously, there's a lot of problems in the world right now given the fact of keyboard warriors sort of hate on online platforms and stuff, but they're people that wouldn't do it face to face. They wouldn't go up to that person and say that. I hear people talking about that a lot. They wouldn't say this to their face, but they'll do it online like a keyboard warrior. So for me, humanizing that relationship between marketing and sales is a starting point, making sure that they know each other, because Steve, the sales guy, is not going to come off the call and walk over to Helen and have a go in her face about how bad the lead was. He might do it over email. So if you get that humanized in that relationship and you get the two working together that way, where they feel like there's a common goal, then you can start to build out the journeys and saying, okay, right, we both recognize that this opportunity or this company is at this stage of the sales process currently, and they're not sales ready, they're in discovery phase, and therefore, we both agree the best course of action is to do this. And so, like I say, it's a bit of a long-winded way of getting there, but you've got to have that alignment in the first place between the departments, before you can then get alignment in the journey of how you educate a customer from the starting point through to hopefully bringing them on board.
So I totally agree. I think it's all about aligning sales and marketing. I invite the marketing team to my team meetings. So we connect, we discuss, we integrate, and then we create this customer journey together. It's also important that the messaging marketing sends out is the messaging the team is going to give to the customers. It's very important to align and agree on customer personas, tracking KPIs, how is the messaging coming over, have one united goal together, and really important, customer feedback. We do constantly surveys at our company. What's the customer feedback? What are they seeing? What would they like to see? And then really the consistency, keep it consistent, keep the messaging consistent, and have all the marketing and sales assets to close the sales. And what's also important is post-sales marketing. You go from marketing you go from marketing winning a customer, but then also you go from marketing to growing, influencing, and attracting the customers and helping them in their journey. And I think they call it smarketing nowadays, where it's really combined and aligned.
Yep, absolutely. I think that's where it always starts, quite frankly. You have to align everybody. And I think that's part of the problem when you have this whole debate about too many leads or not enough leads, right? Because if the marketing team's goal is to send you as many leads as they can, guess what they're going to try to do? They're going to send you as many leads as they can, right? And they're not going to look at the quality of the lead necessarily. Do you think should sales and marketing, how do you start there? How do you get the leaders of those two teams to align? I mean, it's certainly about personality to an extent, right? If you have two people who can't even get along, good luck for their teams to get along, right? I know it's, but I mean, that's probably one thing that comes to my mind, but what else?
Well, I think that understanding the expectation as a sales leader from your marketing team is really key. I don't look at the marketing team as a guaranteed source of leads. I look at the marketing team as a guaranteed source of getting our name out into the marketplace so that we can over time develop, a following of potential prospects, meaning there shouldn't be any dispute between sales and marketing, because from the sales side, at least, the expectation is very low. The best results come from in person-to-person interaction, from personalized reach outs, from persistence, and that comes from the sales team. I think the marketing team leads, some are going to be good, some are going to be bad. The marketing, they have to do wide swath efforts. They have a hard job. But if they're presenting our company in the correct fashion with the correct, professionalism, maturity, and cleanliness, I think that's really all you can expect from a marketing team. But to expect leads is sort of an unreasonable expectation to come to your day of work and believe that the marketing team should be feeding you, qualified leads. And for a salesperson to get upset that that's not happening is just an incorrect basis to begin with. But on that same note, even if you don't get along with your marketing lead, which I personally have a great relationship with her, with our company one, I think she's incredible and done a great job. But even if you don't get along, again, if you have a low expectation of what they should be providing you, it's not really that difficult to get along with them and to set the tone for what they should be doing. It's doubtful that what they're going to do is going to hurt your chances of closing sales. It may just not improve it all that much, but why focus on their job instead of focusing on your job, which is getting out there, closing deals, and driving revenue for the company? It might as well, you might as well just not work and wait for marketing to do their job. And so it shouldn't be that toxic as a relationship. If a marketing person comes to the sales director and says your people aren't closing any leads, that can be a tricky situation because clearly they're being judged on their results. And they don't have those results to show for, but that's just an interpersonal thing. I'm not going to go down that route of how you should address intercompany, interpersonal disputes of who's worth what and who's doing what and who's not.
What I really love about this discussion. So Marlon talked about, how do you get along? I'm oversimplifying here, certainly a little bit, but how do you kind of work together? And then also, Lenny, I hear a bit about, really stop making excuses. And I love that attitude, right? So yes, we want to work together, but at the end of the day, don't just rely on other people, you know, I mean, push forward, do what you can do. And it's like me when I'm sitting here, you know, and I'm saying, oh, I got to lose weight. And you know whose fault it is that I'm not losing weight? My wife's. Total baloney, right? Like, it's not her fault because she's a good cook or, you know, whatever, because there's 3 meals a day when in the summer. But, you know, it's so own it. Do what you got to do. Now, even though we have to own it, I know we don't have a lot of time left. Go ahead.
In the winter, you don't have 3 meals a day?
Well, I do, but so the backstory, my wife is a teacher, right? And my kids, we got young kids. So they're all home during the summer. So they do things, right? So there's basically, they cook and bake cookies and whatever. So I do eat in the winter too, but they're all going to school and doing their own thing. In the summer, they're just hanging out, basically. So let's talk about structuring teams, though. What's the right setup? Like, what kind of people do you need? You know, how do we build a sales team? What's, you know, how do we start that? What advice do you have for people there?
So I love the old-fashioned, I call it, structure, and I live by it. So it's great if you can have an SDR team. They go out and they hunt. Again, we have the word, they hunt the leads. So they go after the leads, get the right contacts. You have an inside sales team looking after, let's say, maybe the SMB market. And if you can have field sales, obviously at the moment in most countries, everybody's inside sales. We're all selling over the web or over the phone due to COVID. But if you can have a field sales team, and if they can be split into kind of farmer type, hunter type, I think that's the perfect alignment. I really swear by inside sales, field sales, and combining those teams together, kind of working on the whole sales cycle. That's the perfect fit, and that's worked in the technology companies I've worked over the 20 years. If all those departments obviously are aligned and work on common goals, I think that's a perfect kind of fit. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with. I would agree with that. I think tried different things over the years. Tried the sort of 360 sort of degree approach where the sales hunt, try to close their business, account management. Really haven't seen that work. So definitely align with Marlon on that. That, you know, having those different elements within the team. And, you know, I talked right at the top of the discussion about talent, and no better place really to start growing and fostering the talent than within that SDR function. If we look at our sales team now within the business, some of our top performers were on the phones, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, and they've come through. They've earned their stripes. They've got that hunger, and they've pushed through the business. So really agree with that structure. But one thing I would really stress is that SDR piece. If you get that right, is a real conveyor belt for talent, which will really sort of go through the business, and you know, is a really crucial part. And you tend to find them very loyal to the organization as well, because they've come up through the ranks, super experienced. They know the culture, the DNA of the business. You really get yourself a fantastic salesperson if you can sort of cultivate that talent through the business.
Yeah, I definitely echo that as well, in the fact that definitely the point around loyalty. Those people that have built their careers in your business will always most probably be your best advocates, and they'll stay with you long term, and they'll recognize that, you know, that whilst it's their own achievement, you know, you've kind of given the platform to, I guess, to make those achievements and grow their careers. So all I would say is probably from I've got a slightly smaller team right now, and I'm 100% with Marlon on this one in terms of, for me, it's about giving people sole responsibilities, single responsibilities, and basically go and be the best at that, and not, you know, but then there's also the reality of where you are with the business. So we're an earlier stage business, and so we don't have the luxury of having, you know, lots of SDRs and lots of salespeople, and we're a bit more having to do a joined up role at the moment. And so we've got a couple of SDRs, we've got a handful of salespeople, and therefore the salespeople are having to do some of that SDR work themselves as well, which is not my preference, but it's where we are right now. And all I would say on that point is just that, sometimes they are going to have to hybrid it and do a bit of both in the earlier stages, particularly if there's some of any people watching that are at those earlier stages of their company. And what I would say with that, what we've found is really important is then to really control your time and control your diary when you're trying to balance those different objectives. So, when we saw it not working was when we had those guys that had to do prospecting and had to sit meetings and had to try and close business, is they come into the day knowing they had those 3 responsibilities, but not really knowing when they were going to do it. And you tend to then react to what goes on in the day. So stuff gets left behind. It's quite often the prospecting piece because it's normally the worst part of the process, if we're honest. So it's really important that if you do have people that have to hybrid a role to a degree in those earlier stages, that they really segment their time and say, right, that time I will be doing this task, that time I'll be doing this task. And you can be flexible because obviously if a client drops you an email and it's an important one, you're gonna react to it. We all do. But at least having the objective that my time is segmented. But yeah, when you get past the stage that we're at now and you've got enough to have a full SDR team and a full sales team, for me, separating the responsibilities, you'll get the best out of the SDR and you'll get the best out of sales, and you create that breeding ground for finding your next wave of talent as well, which is obviously an ideal way to go.
Yeah, I actually agree with a lot of this. I do. The one point that I think it is important to mention is that inside, outside, SDR team, no SDR team, does the sales rep co-account manage? Do they account manage all the way? Do you have an account manager as well? Really then does depend on the product and the sales cycle and what that means for your company. So that's something that is no one size fits all. There are models you can use. The model that we've settled on here is SDR, sales, account management, and operations as a pod. So every sales rep has their own SDR that they work with, and an account manager and an ops person. So they sort of work in a pod with a collective goal. And so it gives you that singular focus, but there's no insider, outsider, hunter, or farmer. The sales rep is sort of the king of the pod from the perspective of, getting the plans in place with the client and making sure it's all executed. The account manager is sort of, helps make sure that the client stays satisfied all the time. The SDR helps feed the sales rep, those leads. And then the operations person makes sure it's all executed. And I think when they all work in a symbiotic way, each understanding their role, you sort of get a lot of camaraderie in that and a lot of success with that. But then again, it also really does matter what type of product you have. Many sales are one and done sale. In that case, you don't want your sales rep account managing. Some are a lot longer term. Some are, a year and then they go off the rails. So you really identify and use these different forms to set up your sales team. But I couldn't agree more that the SDR is a great way to sort of recruit and cultivate talent, as well as I would add that account managers many times turn into rising stars and can also turn into great sales reps. And I found that, junior people will come in as account managers, learn, and they actually can be better than SDRs because they understand the product at such a deep level from living and breathing it. That if you can get them into salespeople, you might have some of the best ones on your hand.
Fantastic discussion, everyone. Really appreciate you for sharing your knowledge. I think some of my biggest takeaways for sure are, it depends, which is absolutely a recurring theme. It depends on what might work for your company. So pick the best tips that you learned here today and try them at your company. See what works and see what doesn't work and push forward from there. The other thing is no excuses and work together. I mean, I think that is a big one. That's an easy one to hide behind. And then finally, I really appreciate the whole, let's call it the talent war, right? I mean, it really is. So bringing up people from, let's call it the farm system or, early stage careers, that's a good way to bring people up. So fantastic advice, everyone. Really appreciate you guys joining us from all around the globe, really, today. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. Awesome. If everybody wants to connect with all the panelists today on LinkedIn, feel free to do that. Just look them up. Make sure you let them know. I don't know what their opinions is on LinkedIn introductory notes. I always like to know where people heard me speak. So make sure you let them know you heard them on the WebInsights.com webinar. And of course, check out WebInsights.com to identify your website visitors and connect with them.